Hello, hello. Welcome into my YouTube page. Wanted to do this back fresh off of Vegas. So I appreciate those jumping on here this evening, recording this, going live actually on Wednesday, July 19th. After a week in Las Vegas for Summer League, which is always one of my favorite weeks, really trips of the entire season because the people I get to see, you also get to see and evaluate a lot of the new guys that enter the league. And that's a lot of fun too, because you just don't know what to make of where they're headed, what they can contribute, and those sorts of things. And so it's fun to see them a little bit, not evaluate the process as much as individual play and know-how and IQ and how they get along with teammates, how they can pick up, how quickly they can pick up on things with teammates in a new environment. But I will say this for those as more people continue to filter in here. The one thing I will say about Vegas is it's become a lot more about the entertainment factor, a lot more about selling tickets and hosting fans to the detriment, I think, of it, unfortunately. I remember 10 years ago when tickets were something like $30. Now they're up to $45 per day. But the good thing is, at least, is most fans aren't going for just one game, right? They're going for multiple games. And so one of those tickets gets you in all day. So that's like 12 games. If you're a diehard and stay with it and are there and spend a lot of time there at Thomas and Mack and Cox Pavilion. You can't ask me questions, by the way. I think this is the left side of my screen for you guys. Maybe it's that way. But over here on the live chat, you can ask me questions, and I'm happy to answer those here for those who joined during this live chat. And then this replay will be available for followers, subscribers to watch later on. But happy to answer whatever questions you may have about the Pacers offseason, the draft, Summer League, free agency. They dipped their toes in and did a little bit. Bruce Brown being the splash signing for them. But it's good to be back home, good to be back here in my office here in downtown Indianapolis. And hopefully for the next month and a half or so, next 6 weeks, things will be relatively quiet, because then in about 6 weeks, at minimum, we'll be ramping up more coverage. Actually, less than that. Really, it's August 7th out in Las Vegas when Tyrese Haliburton begins his training with USA basketball and all of that. He's really excited to share backcourt with Jalen Brunson, to play a little bit of a different role. He was saying at his camp this past weekend that he was excited to not have to be the primary ball handler. It'll be a little bit different, but sometimes something fresh, something new, and something different leads you in a different place and allows you to experience different things. So that's one thing that he was excited about. And then, of course, that's coaching staff's terrific. And just being immersed within the USA basketball program will be good for Tyrese, just like it has been for so many different players that have been in the league. And then they go all over, I think, to Spain before ending up in Manila, Philippines for the FIBA World Cup, which should last for them until the final day, which I believe is something like September 10th. And so he'll fly back here to the United States and then really get right to it. By then, your rookies, your sophomores, all those guys will get right to it here in Indianapolis. By then, it's kind of mandatory, essentially, for those guys to be here. And then you'll probably have guys like Miles Turner, a couple of the other vets, maybe Buddy Hield filter in more like September 20th, several weeks later. What's up, Zachary? You're our first comment of the night. I hope that's a good sign in terms of audio sounding good, sounding loud, I hope. Want to do more of these lives? Let me know if that's good with you guys. But I'm going to get back in more of a routine with the podcast. I do enjoy that. I just really wish I had like a podcast producer, honestly, to handle so much, because there's so much of the legwork that goes into all of that, into not just recording it. All right, cool. Appreciate that, Zachary. There's so much that goes into recording a podcast. Then there's the edits, adding the intro, adding some music, writing some liners, posting it on my Substack, posting it here on YouTube, posting it. Anyways, you don't care about all that stuff, but it's a lot more work than just sitting down for 20 minutes or an hour up to that and recording a podcast. But coming up, I do have some good episodes for you, several of which I've already recorded, including you'll be able to hear part of my conversation with Glenn Robinson III that I had with him a couple weeks ago before he headed out to Vegas, and thought he did quite well in his workouts for several teams out there. I also had a one-on-one conversation with former Pacers assistant Popeye Jones. And let me tell you, that was a lot of fun. Popeye's such a good guy, humble guy, been in the league like 30 years. And then to finally experience the high as he did of winning a championship with the Denver Nuggets this past season, that had to be so fun, so rewarding for a lifer like him. I mean, he's been all over. Excuse me. Had a lot of water before I started this. He's been all over. He was with the Pacers for nearly a decade, but now in Denver working closely with Nikola Jokic, which has to be an incredible situation, and he really appreciates it. So we had a good conversation a couple weeks ago. Thomas is wondering, what's the injury update with Jarris? A lingering issue, or did he hurt himself at Summer League? Fair question, Jarris. Yeah, so this is something I don't know if I'd call it lingering, but this is more something that he injured during the NCAA tournament. He actually injured it in the final college game of his career against Miami, against Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller in that Miami team in the Sweet 16. And then Woj reported that Jarris did not go through his pro day with his agency, WME, because of this. So clearly that signifies that it was giving him some pain after re-aggravating it. Now, of course, he did go through the pre-draft process. We saw that. He was in Indianapolis the first week in June and had a good workout, thought he did well, didn't mention it whatsoever throughout that, which was impressive by his parts to go through that. But when you have loose particles, as I understand it, and talking with players who have had stuff like this, whether it's in their knees, their ankles, in Jarris's case, it's his elbow, his right shooting elbow. It's one of those that can just come up at any point. It's not necessarily like constantly painful. In many cases, it's one of those like maybe you're running and you bump the scores table and then it hurts the rest of the day, but it's fine the next day, but then you sleep on it wrong the next. Long story short, he should be fine. This is one of those where almost certain it's an orthoscopic, probably takes 5 minutes, go in, robotic, remove some loose particles, seal them up, keep it moving. He's in Indianapolis, said on Instagram today that it went well. Thanks for the blessings, whatever he posted. So I shared that as well in my story. But this is not something, it shouldn't be anything that you should worry about. We haven't gotten anything official from the team just yet. Oftentimes they do like to wait about a day after before announcing it. But I don't think this should be of any grave concern whatsoever. Just something that simply kind of needs cleaned up. It's an irritation and maybe some pain as well in general for most of these. Daniel Bridges, hello from New Zealand. Nice. That's awesome. One of my closest friends went to New Zealand for a wedding in March and had nothing but great things to say about his experience there. And then they went on to Australia and that sort of thing. So that's really impressive. Can't believe you're watching from New Zealand. Appreciate that. What's your take on the likelihood of another meaningful signing before next season? Signing unlikely, just because right now they don't have much cap space, just a couple $1 million. And right now they don't even have a roster spot. So there won't be any signing without a trade. I think it's more likely than not there will be at least one, maybe two more trades before the start of the season. I wouldn't rule anything out like that. I think they've had a good offseason. The one thing, though, they have not addressed, though, is consolidating the roster. That's the one thing that we talked about them needing to do, right? That they really haven't gotten to. It's a situation where, you dealt Chris Duarte to Sacramento, but then you acquired Obi Toppin from the New York Knicks. You moved on, electing not to re-sign O'Shea Brissett, so you sign Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown's their number one guy in free agency. That's the meaningful signing. So no, Daniel, I'm not expecting anything meaningful. They would love to do a significant trade. I wrote about it. I think it was last week in Vegas. Yeah, it was about their interest in Pascal Siakam. I heard a couple people talking like, quiet down, it's not significant interest. I'm like, who said it was significant interest? What I know is that they've made calls to the Raptors, to people to check in on Pascal Siakam and learn more about him, what's known as intel, and gathering more information to kind of better understand his situation, what he wants, what he's about. The thing is, most people I talked with at Summer League are not expecting him to be dealt. He doesn't want to get dealt because he wants to get the Supermax. He wants to sign that with the Toronto Raptors. If you're traded, think back to Paul George. It immediately nixes your eligibility to sign a Supermax. Same thing with Anthony Davis. He demanded a trade in New Orleans, got it to the LA, but then ineligible for a Supermax. And so something like the hiccup in someone like him is he's got one more year under his contract. So that complicates the whole thing, because if you're a team like the Pacers, you're not wanting to trade a whole of a lot for a guy for 1 year, because history has shown, for one, they don't sign significant free agents. So the likelihood of being able to re-sign him, highly unlikely. I'm just going off previous results, as we don't see that. Most guys will go elsewhere. There's no financial incentive necessarily for the team that would potentially acquire him to be able to resign him, other than having his bird rights. But they've been trying all offseason to get in with a half dozen names that I've reported at fieldhousefiles.com. Harrison Barnes, Dorian Finney-Smith, Tobias Harris, Jonathan Kuminga, DeAndre Hunter. I'm probably missing a couple there, but checking in on Pascal Siakam, doing their due diligence. Yes, they're interested, but like many teams, it would all come down to, would Pascal be willing to sign a contract extension? If not, it's not worth it really for many teams. All right, Ethan's wondering, any idea if we see Nembhard as the backup 1 or more so at the 2? I have a hard time seeing a place for TJ McConnell, as much as I love the guy. Yep. I saw the writing on the wall and basically put it out there that after the team signed Bruce Brown for the first time in his career with the Pacers, TJ McConnell is now expendable. I would not be surprised whatsoever if he is traded. Wouldn't surprise me. My sense is maybe he wouldn't mind that he's coming off a career season and he sees what we all see. He sees him stacked at guard spot and is sitting there wondering, where am I going to get the minutes? Where am I going to get more than 15 minutes per game? So for those considerations, that's why I think you first then heard his name with the Phoenix Suns. Several other teams I know have checked in about him. It would not surprise me. I think it would be a huge loss to the locker room, to the morale of the team, to the energy of the team on the court, to their play hard factor, just because we know every single night what TJ McConnell will do, what he can contribute. But yeah, I completely agree with that, Ethan. Where's he going to get the time? I'm just not sure right now, and I don't think he knows either. In terms of Nembhard, I see Nembhard kind of playing a combination of the 2 guard and backup 1. Maybe, anymore we see players are really not locked into their positions, right? Like Bruce Brown can defend 1 through 4, maybe the 5. I want to see that more, especially being like 6'4". But I think it's easy to keep track of guys and pencil them in positions when really there's a lot of positionless basketball. Like Matherin's not a 3, although we kind of pencil him in as the starting 3 right now. To the bigger point, I see Nembhard playing a lot more minutes, handling the ball more, and that entails being more of a backup 1, while also being able to, maybe finish games on the secondary defender. Bruce Brown, I see, and they've talked about guarding the best player. Maybe it's Nembhard or Aaron Nesmith on that secondary best guy for opposing teams and finishing games. Therefore, if he's not starting, I still see him playing a huge role next season, and they should. Got a lot to like about Andrew's game and how he contributes and his IQ and how he gets others involved, but it can also knock down the big shot and score in bunches as well. So thanks for that question, Ethan. For others in here, feel free to jump in and leave your comments and questions in the live chat. I enjoy this back and forth. This is fun. This is why I actually want to do more of this. Zachary's wondering, I'm excited to see if Jalen Smith can improve. I love the caveat. I'm excited to see if he can improve somewhat. Yeah, we all are. I mean, he's got bunches to go. I think he's 23. Built up his confidence 2 seasons ago, re-signed with the Pacers, then kind of was unsure of himself, unsure of his role. I still believe that's one area where the Pacers need to clarify is the front court, right? With Daniel Tice, with Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith. They do not need to enter next season in training camp come late September with all three of them on roster in addition to Miles Turner. That's just, I don't know if feasible's the right thing, but it just doesn't make sense for any of from their trajectory to their development to just the allocated minutes that they have to go around. I just don't see that being smart. And Zachary, as Wara looked good and in better shape towards the end of the season. Yeah, and understandably so, because he's a guy that was not playing very much. And when he did, he played like 10 minutes a game. To then he came here, started often, finished often, and played a significant role on both ends of the court. So, yeah, he's going to be out of shape a little bit. Thomas, what's the reason for Ronald Norwood leaving? Was it more money elsewhere or bigger role on the bench? I don't think it was either of those. I talked briefly with Ronald in Las Vegas. He's with the Atlanta Hawks now. But this is a bizarre, uncomfortable, difficult, different type situation that I hope to get into with a conversation with Ron. He wanted a little bit more time with his new situation with the Atlanta Hawks and said he wasn't even sure if Quinn Snyder, his head coach, would allow for him to talk. But I hope to at least help share his story and why he decided this was in his best interest. As I understand it, Ron came to Indianapolis and thought he was going to have a bigger role with the Pacers. By the way, congratulations to him. He added to his family in May with his son. So congratulations. That's some positive news. Hate to lose him here in Indy. I know this was crushing to many of the players. I talked with several of them out in Las Vegas about it. Miles Turner, Ron Norwood, for example. And, Tyrese even brought him up during his not introductory press conference, but his presser after signing his monster contract extension. But Ron's the guy he warmed up with every single game. He's the guy he worked closest with at practice, maybe closer than anyone on the team other than Isaac Jacob, who he was with in Sacramento, who's the head video coordinator with the Pacers and is very, very close with Tyrese. But Tyrese didn't want this. I think this was, I don't know if Ron wanted this, but it's definitely a change up and more to it. I think it's interesting how Rick Carlisle said that they will probably get away from having coordinators, meaning an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, maybe late game situation type coordinator. That's something that he has always done in his career, but it's not looking like that's the route they're going. He mentioned that to us on July 1, the first day of minicamp, but said still a lot of things that needed to be worked out, conversations that he wanted to have with his coaching staff, and talked with some of them out in Vegas, and they confirmed, yeah, those conversations are ongoing. They weren't exactly sure what it might look like. But how it had previously worked was Lloyd Pierce was basically associate head coach, didn't have scouting responsibilities, but was more the other three assistants had those, and Mike Weiner, Ronald Norwood, and Jenny Busick. They would do scouts. They would bring them to Lloyd, and before taking them to Rick, they would discuss things with Lloyd. So he was kind of not a assistant coach, but not the head coach. That's why I call him kind of an associate head coach, even though he did not have that as his title. But Lloyd's such a cool guy. I ran into him several times at the hotel in Vegas, but LP, good dude. But I'm very curious to see how this pans out and without Ron, and how Tyrese does without him, just because he's a comfort. He's a familiar face, a guy he worked very closely with every single day here since joining the Pacers, a year and a half ago. All right, take a couple more questions here on this YouTube Live. Thanks to everyone who joined. I need to get spread the word a little bit, get the interest up, and make people aware about my YouTube channel here. If you haven't checked it out, over the weekend, I posted interview with Tyrese Haliburton from his camp, highlights from him at his camp. You can watch Obi Toppin talking with us media about joining the Pacers and some things that went down in New York. Every interview from summer league practice and games out there in Las Vegas. So take a look if you have not already. But some more questions. Brad says, I see a lot of mock trades with DeAndre Ayton coming back due to interest last season. Any chance of that happening? No. I don't see that happening. You got Miles Turner on a fantastic deal that made sense last year, and now he's basically 20 million for the next 2 years. Aiton's like 33. Um, no, I don't think. Well, why would you do that? No reason to. Um, if anything, I think if he has an underwhelming season, you could buy even lower after this season and have one less season under his contract. That then you could also decide what you do with Miles Turner after that. He'd be in a contract year, so does he get an extension? Do you trade him? Those are certain things that you can decide upon. Got a lot going on in the NBA world. That gets my Apple Watch a buzzing. But thanks for the question, Brad, and thanks for joining me here tonight. Zach says it would be amazing to see Jo and Ron Artest implemented in training camp. I think just implementing or including former Pacers in general would be a great thing. And I think that's one thing that the team, in particular, Karen Atkinson, with the vice president of player relations, has done a much more focused job of the last couple of years. That's why you see guys included much more than in the past, for sure. And that's always a good thing. I don't care who you are, what team or college program. Yeah, I talked to and answered a question about Ronald Norad leaving for the Hawks. I think it's a big hit losing Calbert Chaney back to IU. He'd been with this team for several years, couple coaching staffs, really liked what he was doing, but also it is such a grind being in the NBA. 82 games, and he can still be in a player development role, or is, but this case it's with IU. His kids are out of the house, so that makes it a lot easier than a decade ago when he worked for Tom Crean in a similar role. But now, I mean, I just think about college. You have like 30 games a year. In pros, you have like 82. Now you are traveling charter. You're staying at the Four Seasons and Ritz and stuff like that. But college isn't so bad either. I mean, back in Assembly Hall where he's damn near worshipped, you have fewer games. You're still traveling charter. So life isn't too bad there. And he really has that attachment not only to Mike Woodson, the head coach there, but also IU, his alma mater, in Big Ten, where he's still the all-time leading scorer. How did I get down there? Oh, former players. Yeah. So you're seeing the Pacers and other teams, for that matter, trying to work in and include them in different things. I think Ron Artest was at a sitting courtside for a game this season, I believe. So Jo, I thought it was pretty cool. Coaching Drive Nation, his AAU program down in Dallas. My friend Jeff Rabjohns, who does a great job on the IU and college basketball beat, posted that, and it's so cool to see. I mean, LeBron coaching, Rondo coaching, Dwayne Wade, I think, coaching. I don't know. There's a lot of them, and that's just so cool to see the involvement with their kids, being present, but also coaching. That can't be easy, especially for the stars, I think, like LeBron, because that's why I said Peyton Manning would never be a good coach, because he would expect you to work as hard as he did. He would expect you to do everything that he did, for you to have the instincts and the knowledge like he did. And the reality is he was just unique and special. So it takes a special individual to have that patience and teaching ability. All right, a couple more here. Ethan, we're entering the drought of the NBA season. FIBA coming up. Are you looking for anything specific from Tyrese? Not in particular. I think just seeing how he plays with other stars, how he also plays with other key talent, because here he's clearly the all-star. He's the best player on the team right now. But I think in the perfect situation for the Pacers to be a championship contending team once more, he might be the third best player on the team. That doesn't mean maybe he's not the most impactful or most important, but maybe he's not the top scorer. Maybe that's Mather, and maybe that's another guy you bring in. What I will say is I think it's important for this team to be done drafting in the lottery for maybe the rest of this decade. Now it's about next season getting into the playoffs, and I do not mean the play-in game. To me, that's not the playoffs, even if you qualify. That means top 6. So that's what I really want to see there. So to answer your question, Ethan, I know it's bland, but I think it's get out of there healthy, have success, ideally get the gold medal, and see how he works among stars. And then also, it wouldn't be the worst thing for him to recruit a little bit. I joked with him about that at his camp over the weekend, and I'll probably include that in my Team USA preview for him. But yeah, maybe in a couple of years, one of those players he was teamed up with does want to be acquired by the Pacers or signs here in free agency. That's, I think, the best case scenario, at least for Pacer fans. Brad, appreciate you coming on here. Yep, absolutely. No, thanks for joining. Glad you're a subscriber of the channel. I hope all of you guys are with me at fieldhousefiles.com and the podcast as well, which I have a lot of things in store as well. Want to get a new logo? I've had that logo for 3+ years. Time for a little bit of a refresh, right? The team's getting refreshed. Maybe I'll have one as well. I would suggest you post in Reddit or Discord next time. Never done that. I've never posted on Reddit and never gone on a Discord, Ethan. But I appreciate the suggestion there for sure. I will tell you this: I'm one of those that usually creates accounts as soon as a platform is started, just so I have my name, because I always like just my name, much more so than Scott 12794, right? For example. But anyways, I got the username or profile, whatever, Scott Agness on Reddit, like more than a decade ago, but it was before you could attach an email to it. And so I can't remember the password and I can't attach. Anyways, I can't send an email with a new password because there's no password attached and Reddit won't help me out. I have been on the Pacers Reddit occasionally and it seems interesting. Some good discussion for sure. A lot of duplicate discussion as well, like when news happens and things come down. Pacers Discord, I don't know anything about, so feel free to send me a DM or an email about that if you think that's something I should check out. I'm interested in it. More than anything, I love people interacting, leaving comments on my Fieldhouse Files stories. Those can guarantee you're going to get a response. I love reacting to those and helping people out. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up this YouTube live. Thanks to everyone who joins live, that group. And then also, I know there will be hundreds more, maybe thousands, but at least hundreds more that watch streaming at a different time on your time. And I know I prefer that actually, because I like watching at 2x speed. I know I may be a little bit unique in that, but I love doing that for podcasts and such, video or audio for that matter. But thanks for everyone for tuning in. Hope to do more of these. Maybe I'll include guests if these become more popular down the road, but I'll have a new podcast for you this week. Some more stories coming up on fieldhousefiles.com. And as always, plan to be on 8:30 in the morning, Kevin and Query on Thursday morning. Everyone have a great night.